Children's tale where little Johnny is asked by the preacher, Johnny, do you know the meaning of faith? Do you know what faith is? And he says, sure I do, preacher. He said, what is it? He says, faith is believing what you know ain't true.
Walk in the path of God, Smile says. But again, I find myself trotting along the path of man. It's where I live, for crying out loud, directly linked and fully bonded with human souls.
Your soul goes up to heaven. Comedy show, ladies. You need to go to the show. And what else?
And all that baggage that comes with it, draped with human attributes, full of folly and foibles, so outlandish no imagination could conjure them up.
We're living in the last
These
days,
are real stories.
A lot of things are going on, like homelessness and drugs, alcohol, and a lot of gang activity. I don't know, maybe it's hard to find work and things like that.
So some countries are in the dump, some countries are up, some neighborhoods are in the dump, some neighborhoods are nice. So that's the answer to that question. Mr. Man with a nice shirt. What else?
These are real stories unwinding in cities and towns all over the world, in many languages, through every culture, lives weaving their way like webs.
We live in a world that is torn, that is far from being whole. It's fractured. And people who really care get depressed because there's a lot that is depressing. Certainly we can gloss over it and deny it and suppress it and try to stay away from all of these painful things. But if we're really a citizen of the earth and connecting with what's going on, we have no alternative but to feel lots of pain.
Stretching in all directions, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, brothers and sisters, meeting friends of associates, until everybody falls into their roles with their responsibilities and obligations and schedules and appointments, cancellations, reappointments, classes, interviews, surveys, tests.
Where did I come from? What's the meaning of my existence? Do I have a soul? What happens to me when I die? Does God exist? Does she care about me? These are the qualities that human beings have. You know, we are the only species that is aware of our mortality. And with that comes the great desire to look into the unknown. If you're not totally amazed and bewildered and mystified by yourself, then you are still not fully human.
Eventually, we were able to put a face on this struggle. It was a group of teens in the mountains of Colorado, and we had stopped and decided to try to do some street interviews. And we had asked one of the boys the same question that we had asked back in that radio station. And the honesty of his response said more than his words could ever say.
If I had one wish for the world, if I had one wish for the world, I would have everyone, I don't know, I'd have to think about that. I don't know. I wouldn't have a wish for the world. I don't think I would choose wish for the world. I don't think I'm worth it. That's the truth.
Several questions being asked from a lot of...
The original plan for the movie was just to do street interviews. We were going to get our camera and put together a list of questions and talk to people on the streets and try to get a broad cross-section of humanity answering these questions. Well, at some point we decided, let's try to get an interview with a famous person or a spiritual leader or an icon or an author. And so we sent out a few emails. And the first response that we got back was from Dr. Robert Thurman. Not only is he Uma Thurman's father, but he happens to be a great author, a professor, close personal friends with the Dalai Lama. He was the first American-born Tibetan Buddhist monk. And he's kind enough to invite us to his home in the Catskill Mountains.
He's never seen the questions, never heard the questions, so he's doing everything off the cuff.
I mean, we're asking, describe God. Why is there poverty and suffering in the world? Why are so many people depressed? What happens to you after you die? And he's barraging us with this wealth of information and articulate thought, and it was an incredibly powerful interview that we were having. Well, question 17 was a little bit different. Question 17 was our non-verbal question, as we called it. And the question went like this.
Non-verbally, by motion, gesture, or movement only, show or act out the condition of the world.
Now, at about this point, as the guy asking the questions, I start to think to myself, gee, I wonder what he's going to do. Because it's kind of a bizarre question anyway, and we've gotten an awful lot of interesting responses, shall we say, to this question. Act out what you believe to be the current condition of the world. So there's Robert Thurman continuing to stare at me during this interview. And the next thought that I had was, oh my God, he thinks we're idiots.
Well, it was fear because we never ran the camera and we didn't know how to use the equipment, and he was our first big interview. It was fear.
And the reality is, we did become fearful. I know I became very fearful during this part of our exchange. I was actually afraid to blink. I think fear is a very powerful emotion.
What are we all so afraid of? Oh, we are afraid of our shadows.
We're afraid we're not good enough to do certain things in life. We're afraid that we might do something wrong. We're just afraid of ourselves.
We're afraid of ourselves.
We're afraid of ourselves.
We're afraid we're not worthy. We're afraid we're not worth it.
I think we're afraid of knowing who we truly are.
We're afraid of what this world might do to us.
We are afraid of the darkness inside of us.
We're afraid we're broken and failures and will be discovered, and then